Hey everyone, Mike here in the BFH garage. As I'm working on the project, I told you I would stop to take certain videos if it was something that I wanted to do a how-to. I'm at that point right now. As you can see, or maybe you can't see that far away anyway, I'm installing my body lift pucks that I had on the other Jeep. Actually, these are Savvy pucks here. I'm using these as a setup because I'm doing something a little bit different. So normally we want to raise that body up anywhere between an inch, inch and a quarter, and that gives us clearance for the belly skid so the transfer case can come up and things like that. One of the things that happens frequently though when you're off-roading in the rocks like I do, these body mounts become serious targets for large rocks. They bend, they crumple, they beat up the original body mounts. And I'll show you some pictures from my other Jeep of what I'm talking about. So what I've done is I have purchased a kit from Genright Off-Road, and this is a body mount relocation kit, or body mount relocation kit. And what this does is this is going to mount the actual body lift higher along these 3 points on the side of the TJ, and it's going to pull them up and out of harm's way for the most part. Normally, I like to fab my own stuff, and looking at these brackets, I can certainly make that. But right now, time's against me, so I want to make sure I get back out on the trail this year still, so I'm opting for the quicker, easier method of purchasing this. Plus, with the cost of steel right now, I'm not sure how much money I'd be saving anyway, so that's the route I decided to go with this. So let me get you up closer here. I'm going to put these body mounts next to the stock ones so you can see exactly what they will do. So when you look here, this is where the stock mount goes, and you see the pictures of where that got all mangled. These newer mounts, they raise it up to there, and what you do is you reuse your existing body mounts with the original bolts, not the extended bolts from the lift. And you can see that raises everything up and out of the way of harm's way. Now there's other versions of this out on the market, but most of them will have a straight edge from here to here. They'll be all boxed in, and while that'll protect the body mount, what it does is you end up having a bunch of stuff that's hanging down again. So you're kind of defeating the whole purpose of what you're trying to solve here. Genright has come up with the best solution so far. And with the radius there, you can't hit what isn't there. That's the whole mindset behind that. So that is going to hopefully save these mounts from getting chewed up like my old ones did. Now, one thing to note is you're going to look at these body mounts, and they're all a little bit different. You see how this one has a short shoulder, this one's got a big shoulder. This one has a big shoulder, but it's shorter than the other one. So you have to put them up there and determine which one goes where. I recommend you do that and then mark them. So for me, I put an M there for middle. And the way to tell is, because the hole is just about the same on all of them, what you do is put it up here next to the rail and then look where the actual body mount lines up. If I was to put this one back here, you would see that this body mount hole is scooted way further than this one. So this becomes the first one. And then on the back side here, this one, if you notice, has a big shoulder right here, which puts it up really high. So if I was to try to put that in here, you're going to see that it goes all the way up against the tub. There's no room for that mount. And when you follow this torque box all the way up, you're going to see how it raises up. So if you put that back there, then you have that gap you need. So that makes this the front one. And then obviously the last one would be the rear. I'll put that up there. I'll line up the holes. Everything lines up just right. So that's what I need. I have them marked. Now I'm ready to get to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the existing middle weld first. I'm going to get that one tacked up in place, make sure everything fits right. And then once I get that burned in, then I'll do one at a time. That way I don't have any shifting of the body moving around. Once I get all those done, same process for the other side. Then I can lose these pucks. I'll keep them still for the cross member towards the rear. And eventually I'm going to do that rear bumper raise. You saw my other video where you can raise that up and get rid of that gap. And I plan on doing that with this one as well. So, so for right now, what I need to do is get this one cut up or cut off. I need to get all this metal cleaned up. I'm going to flap disc all this surface rust stuff off of here. I'm going to put the body mount inside the body mount bracket here, bolt it up, see how close it comes, make sure everything lines up, and then and only then will I finish welding it in place. So pretty simple process, just takes a little bit of layout to get everything lined out the way you want. Now, whether or not you're on a lift like I am or you're doing this in your driveway on jack stands, it really doesn't matter. Either way is going to be the same. Just make sure when you place your jack stands that they're not in the way of you grinding stuff off. So obviously to get to this weld, I'm going to have to move this arm a little bit. So I'm going to have to figure that out. But anyway, when you go to cut these things, it's going to be difficult getting in behind and cutting it straight off. So you're just going to have to come in a little bit of an angle with your angle grinder, cutting that way. And then without cutting into the frame, cut the bracket off. Then you're just going to have to come back up and clean it up with a flap disc. Pretty straightforward, but thought I would mention it. You can only cut so far back there. You got to finish it up with the Sawzall. Okay, I've already ran into snag number one. The instructions tell you to put the body mount up there, put the mount on the frame, then secure the bottom mount with the bolt up there, and everything should line up. As you can see here, I have a probably an 1/8 inch gap at an angle there. So my question is, I'm not sure if it is the actual torque box here where the body mount goes, because it is corroded pretty good. It's got some rust in there, so that may be throwing things off. Or is my body scooted over this way, maybe an 1/8 of an inch, and I just need to push it back a little bit. I'm not sure which, but what I don't want to do is go ahead and just burn this in as it is and then have it misalign everything else. Because this one has a known bad torque box mount, I'm going to go ahead and move onto this rear mount here. Get this one cut off, get the other one welded on, get it secured. That way I know it's in a good known spot. Then I'll come back and I'll work on this one. And that's if I don't go to the front one first and then do this one last. That way I can make sure everything is in alignment the way it needs to go. Okay, so the problem is we had that gap here, and I wasn't sure whether it was because of that mount up here was corroded or not. So I cut off the rear mount here. We still have a little bit of a gap. So it got me wondering if the body was actually shifted one side or the other. And it could be just because it's been in an accident. It could be because the tolerances on these Jeeps aren't as nice as we'd like them to be. So what I did is I went to the other side and I cut off this bracket and I put this one back on. And if you'll notice here, I can get this one to fit pretty snug, although it's not tightened up the way I want. But when I do, it fits pretty darn snug. One thing you're going to notice, there's a little bit of movement back and forth there. If you go to the other side, it's the same thing. We're going to have just a little bit of back and forth movement. So what I need to do then is I know now that that body is shifted just a little bit. So I can put a crowbar, for example, if I put a crowbar right here, I can shift the body over. Actually, I can't do it one-handed, but I can shift the body over. And I can get this as best as I can. So if I have like a 1/16 inch gap on this side and a 1/16 on the other, I'll be far happier with that because I can make that work. I just want to make sure that this body's getting put on square. And I'm glad I've kind of figured this out a little bit. So one of the other things I've done too is I've raised the body a little bit higher. So the mounts, the original puck lift mounts I had, it still allowed it to sit too low. And when these things were on here, they were down at an angle. And once I lift the body up, you can see how that I can get it to lay flat, and as the body continues to come down, it should lay flat on that because I have both sides up at the same time, not just one, and that's making a big difference for me. All right, so I got to figure it out just like I thought. The body was off just a little bit. So over here, and I call these heavy tack welds, they're more like mini stringers, I guess, but I barely have 1/8 of an inch over here. And then when you come to the other side, it is the same thing, and everything lines up nice, flat, on even on both sides. And I just, heavy tack those in place. I just want to make sure everything's going to lay out the way it needs to before I commit fully to it. One thing I did check though was this other body mount in the middle, and let me see if I can do this with one hand or not. And anyway, it gets up there. Let me pull that bolt out real quick. It gets up there and lines up into its mount. And now if you'll notice, that gap is gone. So all I need to do is raise that body up just a little bit more and I can put it flush, and then that thing's going to weld right into place. So with the body being off just a little bit, it kind of threw me off, and I just wasn't sure how to proceed from there. So now what I'm going to do is get the front body mount done first. So I'm going to cut this one off, get this done, and then I'll go back and get that middle one. So the problem with what I'm trying to do now is I have to have my jack there to hold up the body, because if I don't and I pull this or cut this mount off, then everything will just kind of fall down and it'll limp. So I want to make sure I'm maintaining my height that I'm going to need to get that body mount on there. All right, what a long day. I have everything heavy tacked in the way that I want it. The body was out of alignment. That's what was causing that gap there. So I got that all figured out. I'll still talk about it at the end here, but for right now, I have all 6 mounts tacked in place. The body's being held up by that. Those are tightened down. I just want to make sure the fit and everything is correct before I commit to burning them in. So I'm going to call that a day for today, and that'll give me a fresh look at it. Tomorrow I can just verify everything that I did was correct. And once that's done, I'll get all those burned in and go from there. So it's just another puzzle or thinking man's game, getting this stuff figured out when things aren't exactly square. It's going to be off more on one side than it will be the other. So you just have to take the time to get everything squared up, and you'll see success like that. So let's take a look at it tomorrow, and we'll get this thing finished up. Okay, here we are in day 2. Come out here and get a fresh look at this thing. It's what I wanted to do. A lot of work yesterday, but before I burn everything in, I just wanted to go through and inspect everything, make sure everything lined up right, made sure all of the body mounts were going to be able to line up and attach. So I've done that inspection. Everything lines up as expected. All we got to do now is burn these things in all the way. So the way I'm going to do this is different than the way the directions tell you. The directions tell you to put a cold rag around this while you burn those in so you don't melt these. But I'm just going to remove these. So I'm going to raise the body up enough to remove the mounts, and then I can just leave it that way, burn them in all the way, let it cool. Then I'll put the body mounts back in. That way I don't have any risk of damaging the body mounts. Plus that'll let me get a good clean coat of paint on it, and that'll make things easier for sure. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of is if you're doing this on your garage floor in your driveway and you're just using floor jacks, it may be a little bit different for you, but it shouldn't be if you do it right. I've done body mounts before on the ground using floor jacks. Put a 4x4 or whatever underneath the body, you can raise it up, get your work done. So just because this thing's on a lift doesn't make it easier. I mean, it makes it easier on my body because I'm standing up, but trying to get everything lined up and still maintain safety, because this thing could shift either way, makes a big difference. Using my little stands here kind of gives me that body lift, but I'm telling you what, I've got to pay big time attention to safety on this while it's on the lift. So if you're on the garage floor, you're going to be in a much better spot than me. Granted, you'll be sitting on your rear end instead of standing. That's the only difference. So get these burned in, get them painted, and get those mounts back in. Now there's another trick too to this. As you can see, these body mounts still kind of hang low down here, and there's a couple other people do this too. They'll find some more of these rear body mounts, and they'll drill out the hole a bit. They'll put those there, and it tucks it up even further, and it's still strong enough to provide that body mount. And then what they'll do is they'll dimple this. They'll get like a chamfered bolt, and they'll dimple that, and then they'll use either a chamfered bolt to put up there, or they'll use like a button head bolt, and that tucks it up even further. So that's an option for you if you want to do that. If you decide to stick with the traditional mounts, no harm, no foul, but the whole purpose of raising this is to get everything out of harm's way. And as you can see here, based on this this curve here, you can see that that bolt still hangs low. So the one thing I would recommend is to get those body mounts, the smaller ones, put them in there, raise that up, go to a smaller profile bolt, and that gives you the most likely success or plan of success to not get these things damaged. So take that in consideration too, because as I look at these, I can see that these are going to be the next target. And to be honest with you, I'd rather have the body mount itself be the target than this. So I definitely am going to change these out to those smaller mounts. So a lot of welding to do. Let's get busy. Okay, I got the brackets all burned in. Make sure when you weld, you get good penetration, you get good thick welds there. You want to make sure, because when you come down on these rocks, that's a lot of force on these mounts. Will rip them right off if you don't have good penetration on that. Make sure that you get up top, you wrap those corners, you get those top welds done if they're needed on that bracket. You get all those done and you're good. Now, the very next step I need to do now is let these cool down, because it's not going to do me any good to try to throw the mounts on now, because they'll probably melt or distort or something like that. So I'm gonna let these cool down. I'm going to get them painted up first. Then I'm gonna put the mounts on. Then I'm gonna lower the body back down. That will allow me to finally get to the other side. So I need to let everything cool, get it painted, drop this. I'm going to put the bolts in here, not all the way tight, because you still have to have them loose to raise the other side. And just to be clear again, if I didn't already say it, the other side mounts are the bolts are loose. That allowed me to raise this up without tweaking or breaking anything. Okay, here it is all finished, or is it? So looking at it, you can see how much higher those mounts are. Everything looks great. But now I'm going to show you the little trick that's going to get rid of this bolt, this nub, and the thicker part of this. All right, here's the little trick. Now you got to pay attention here. So this piece right here, and I'm going to come behind the camera so I can make sure you guys are seeing everything all right. So this piece right here is what sits on top of the mount and goes between the body and the mount. Then you have your mount that goes in there. This comes up from below, and that is effectively what makes your isolation between the body and the frame. You see how you have the bolt head sticking all the way down here. There's no gap between this, but imagine a 3/16" gap, and that's what you have. The new way to do this, or not the new way I should say, but a way to do this where you're going to gain a full inch of clearance is to, let me get this apart real quick. Is you're going to take that same isolator, right? Now pay attention here, because you got to see this. So this one here, you see you have the metal that protrudes down. You need to cut that off. So you simply just push the sleeve out of this, put it in a vise, cut it off. So mark it where it needs to go. You cut that off, right? Okay. Then you take, instead of the standard isolator being this one, you get rear mounts that come on the back either cross member or the rear cross member where the frame meets. And you get those at a junkyard. You can buy them online. It doesn't matter, but you want to get the thinner one. And if you see here, you can see it's thinner by quite a ways because this has the whole bump out and everything right here. Now, if you just take this by itself, it's not going to work because this piece, it won't go on. So what we have to do is take a sanding drum from a Dremel, and you could sand this down until these two mate together. Now, let me get them put together. Now, once they're put together like that, then you grab one of these Allen cap bolts here, and that will go up and through, and that's going to save you a full inch. Now, one thing you need to pay attention here is right here, I take this thing, pull it apart again, and I'll show you this when I get over to the press. You take this over to a press, and you actually press this button down into the top, and you actually form it using the bolt itself. So you'll take a socket, you'll put it on this side, you put it there, send the press down till it's flush, call it good. It makes its own indentation, it sticks there, and then when you're all done, you have this completed body mount. Let me put the other one together, and I'm going to show you the difference now. This one doesn't even account for the 3/16 bracket that's in there, where this one does, and you can still see how much room you're saving. I've measured it, I put them right here on the table. It's a full inch difference, and when you are talking about this bracket, let me show you here. Actually, I'm going to bring you right over and give you a close up here. Hang on. So here's our bracket. That's the traditional mount. You can see how low that thing hangs. Get a reference point there. This is what it's going to be when it is done. You see how that tucks up in there nice and neat. Now let's go around to the side and see what that looks like. So here is traditional. That's going to be roughly like that. So you can see how that sticks way down below the bracket. And then once we add in this part, she gone. So that's going to save everything from getting crunched up, and that is going to be awesome. All right, here's the next step, which involves honing out the backside of this isolator here. Just get a Dremel with the sanding drum on there, and you're just gonna go around in circles. And I would say rotate a quarter or half a turn every, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, because your pressure is gonna be a little bit different. And just keep doing that and test fitting until it fits. All right, now it's time for the last step of this process, and that is getting this bolt dimpled into this. So take your bolt, you put it through, you grab a socket that goes through, get something as close as you can to fit the inside diameter of that. And then because of my arbor plate's a little bit too big, I got to use a little spacer here, a smaller hole, and you set it like that. And you press down until it becomes flush. So just start to press, it'll start dimpling. And keep an eye when it's straight across, you don't go too far, you stop. I need to get another handle for these. And then as you can see, once it's dimpled, it's flush, and that's what we're looking for. All right, the last step now, we need to get these installed on this, tightened up, and see what it looks like. All right, finally got the job done. You know, there's actually one more thing you do here to even get a little bit more clearance, but you got to think about it before you weld your brackets on like I did. If you go to the rear isolators, the upper isolator, so here's the middle isolator, here's the rear isolator, and you could see how you could still stand to gain another 1/4 of an inch. So instead of having the thicker one there, you could put that one there and you're going to gain yourself another 1/4 of an inch. Is it worth the effort? Well, to be honest with you, it wouldn't have been a whole lot more work. The only difference is you need to shim these brackets up that additional 1/4 of an inch, because these brackets are designed for a 1-inch lift. So you got to make sure that you put that up a little bit higher, and then you're going to be good to go. Let's get up here and take a look now, and you guys can see and be the judge of whether this was worth it or not. Do you remember how low everything hung down over here? Now when you come to the side, you barely get that little bitty corner right there, and that is it. That is just really slick. I like this modification. You saw the pictures of my old body mount brackets, and they were destroyed. So this is going to be a game changer for me, because if I'm not getting hung up on the rocks because of my body mounts, then it's just more places I can go. So hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll catch you on the next one.